Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zearkos, and today I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons of a few different builds for the Barbarian in Diablo 3. The footage I'm displaying is from my level 45 Barbarian in Act 2 of Nightmare mode, but I've been using this first build I'm going to show you since about level 22. And this first build I already have playing in the background here is what I call the Honey Badger build, because Honey Badger just don't give a shit. As you can see in the video, I'm standing in place and taking all the damage from both constructs and the whirlwind damage from Cool at the same time. And I honestly don't care. The lowest that my health gets with 3 targets hitting me is somewhere between 55 and 60%, I'd guess, and once one target goes down, the rune on my frenzy kicks in and I heal 8% of my total health. The abilities I use are Revenge with the healing rune, Warcry with the additional health rune, Leap with the armor rune, Ignore Pain with the damage to life rune, Frenzy is my main attack with the Triumph rune, and Weapon Throw with the 130% damage rune. I also use the additional armor passive, the vitality to armor passive, and the passive for Warcry. The reason this build is so viable is that with a large pool of health and armor from your armor, all incoming damage is instantly reduced by 55% without any abilities active. And after stacking Warcry and leaping into combat, all incoming damage is reduced by 85%. That's reducing it to 15%. And then if you are still dying after that, you can use your Ignore Pain cooldown and reduce that 15% damage by another 65%, and which takes that all the way down to 5.25%, I think. Needless to say, it's a rarity to use all of your cooldowns, drink a potion, and still be unable to survive the encounter if you're playing smart. The second build I'm going to talk about today is the two-handed weapon build, also known as the Conan or the Arnold build. Before I go into any detail with this build, it's important to note that this build survives and thrives on balancing two things, which are A, being able to pour out a lot of damage as fast as possible, and B, having ways to sustain your health. The reason that I like this build is because the Honey Badger build actually gets boring after a while. It's awesome at first to be able to run into a pack of seemingly endless mobs and not see your health total even move, but after a while the combat just gets to be where nothing exciting happens, which makes it about as fun for me as playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure. This build, though, requires you to play a bit smarter. The other reasons that I like this build are that it's really satisfying to use revenge in large groups of weak mobs that have surrounded you and insta-kill all of them. That and combining Earthquake on enemies while you attack them causes huge amounts of burst damage, causing you to be able to burst down even some of the deadliest champion and elite packs. The abilities I suggest on this build are again Revenge with the health rune, Warcry with the health rune, Ignore Pain with the damage to life rune, Earthquake with the No Fury and reduced cooldown rune, Frenzy is my main attack with the Triumph rune again, and Ancient Spear with the Dread Spear rune. And if you notice anything about these abilities and runes, you should notice that all of them, with the exception of Earthquake, can all heal you in some way. Also, where the Honey Badger build has Ignore Pain as your oh shit button, this build has the same thing but with a twist. If you use your Ignore Pain cooldown and your Earthquake at the same time, the damage output from Earthquake causes you to heal 330% of your weapon damage over Ignore Pain's duration. This, coupled with the innate 65% damage reduction from Ignore Pain, plus the other damage you'll do, usually means you can heal back to full health from any level of health. The downside of this build, though, is that your only way to catch a fleeing enemy is the Ancient Spear. Otherwise, you will be running. A lot. It hurts me to say that this build was the first time I had a treasure goblin get away from me because I had no way to close the distance after he ran into another pack of mobs. The last thing I want to talk about is why you should not use two one-handed weapons on a barbarian, and it's all because of how the dual wield mechanics work. First off, when you dual wield two one-handed weapons, you get a 15% attack speed increase, just like that, and that is awesome, because that is a huge DPS boost. Some of my characters are still using attack speed rings from level 20 even into my late 30s because attack speed is just so good. And being able to get another 15% attack speed just off of holding another weapon in your offhand, that's amazing. But you do alternate your attacks with each hand, obviously. This means that if you do want to dual wield one-handers, your offhand weapon still has to be close in damage to your main hand. And this means you're also maintaining gems, repairs, and replacements for two weapons at the same time instead of one. The other downside is that since all abilities are percent weapon damage based, Some of your abilities alternate which weapon stats to use in your calculations. Hammer of the Ancients, for example, will use the attack damage from your main hand, and then if you use it again, will use it from your offhand. Which means that instead of your hammer hitting for a consistent rough number each time you use it, the damage will cycle between a stronger and a weaker value because your offhand is usually going to be your weaker weapon. There's also an attack speed variable that's extremely important, but that's remedied by making sure your offhand weapon is a naturally faster attack speed than your main hand weapon, so I'm not really going to go into that. Overall, the loss of survivability for using two one-handed weapons, the difficulty in keeping weapons of similar power, and the weakening of your abilities causes me to lean towards using a sword and board or Conan build on my Barbarian, and even pushes me to use a two-handed weapon on my Demon Hunter. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you could leave me some feedback or some constructive criticism, I would love to hear it. I'd like to know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. This is Zearkos out. Late.